Good morning. Today's class is about renal tumors. So let's just brush through the anatomy. So we know kidney is nothing but a bean-shaped organ. And this is a cut surface of the kidney where we can see the kidney is divided into two portions. This is the cortex. This is the cortex and this is the medulla. The medulla further has a pelvic-calyceal system. So this is a renal pelvis, and these are the calyces, which has a minor and a major calyces. And at the hilum of the renal pelvis, we have the three structures. One is the renal artery, which provides a blood supply, the renal vein, which takes the blood away from the kidney, and the ureter. So the cortex, the medulla, the pelvic-calyceal system, and the hilar structure. So this is the basic anatomy of kidney. So now let's get into the classification of tumors. So like any tumors, this again is classified in two types. One is the benign tumors and the malignant tumors. So benign renal tumors, which means they're the non-cancerous growths on the kidney and they do not metastasize to any parts of the body, any other sites in the body. They are not life-threatening, but the patient can present with pressure effects. If the tumor is big, it can compress the kidney, and as a result, the functioning could be hampered. So basically, the pressure effects are the ones with which the patient presents with. And as there is universal increase in the use of radiological imaging, benign renal masses are being detected more frequently. Okay, so for anything, let's say if you have a patient with stone or something, we immediately go do an ultrasound, and there could be a mass lesion which would have been just an incidental finding. And then most of the benign tumors we can just wait and watch. Like we can have a periodic follow-up, and if it is remaining same in size, not causing any problems, we can leave it. Or we could, if necessary, we could also do a biopsy and just leave it. Don't touch don't do any surgeries. And if it is going on for something malignant, and at part of time, a surgery could be opted for. So what are the various benign renal tumors means? This is the WHO classification. So it has a metanephric adenoma, oncocytoma, angiomyolipoma, which is also referred to as the renal hamartoma, leiomyoma, lipoma, fibroma, rhabdomyoma, neurofibroma, hemangioma. So the suffix oma means benign. So leiomyoma means something to do with the smooth muscle origin. Lipoma is something to do with the fat, adipocytes. Fibroma is fibrous origin. Rhabdo means skeletal muscle. Neurofibroma is something to do with the neural tissue. Hemangioma is with the blood vessels. Okay. So in this, what I'm going to tell you is about the two benign tumors. One is the oncocytoma and angiomyolipoma, because they're more common, relatively more common when compared to the other. So that is what I'm going to be, and they are a little unique to the kidney. Whereas these all tumors, all these benign tumors can occur in any other organ, but oncocytoma and angiomyolipoma is something very specific for the kidney, and they are benign and the occurrence is more, and that's why I'll be telling a little more detail about these two tumors. So let's start with the oncocytoma. Oncocytoma is benign. It's unifocal. A renal tumor that has a size of about 5 to 8 centimeter in diameter, but can reach to very large sizes. Till now, no malignant elements have been found, and it is more common in men. It is found incidentally, and the best thing is just to go for a partial or radical nephrectomy, the safest method of treatment, because you never know, sometimes it can get differentiated into RCC. So this is a gross picture of oncocytoma. So we can see here again, if you go through, just go through your neoplasia lesson. So gross, we can say it is a very typical benign tumor. It is well circumscribed. You can see very good margins over here, and it is generally round to oval. And a typical cut surface will have a mahogany brown appearance. So this orangish, reddish to brown color is referred to as the mahogany brown appearance, and they generally have a central scar. So you can see a scarring tissue can be noted. So well circumscribed, unifocal, and a cut surface of mahogany brown appearance. And on microscopy, we can find the cells are benign. Okay, so you can see all the cells have a very benign nucleus with regular nuclear margin, no irregularities, no nucleoli, and the cytoplasm will have plump eosinophilic granular cytoplasm. Okay, so you can see here all the cells have a plump granular eosinophilic cytoplasm. So this is a typical picture of oncocytoma. So next, coming to the next benign tumor of the kidney, which is angiomyolipoma. So if you split the word angio, which means there's proliferation of blood vessels, myo, which means there is a smooth muscle component, lipoma, which means there's an adipocyte component. So this tumor has all the proliferation of all the three components, that is blood, muscle and adipocytes, and that is why it is referred to as the hamartoma. So angiomyolipoma is also referred to as the renal hamartoma. So these are generally unusual tumors of the kidney, but they're always there's a lot of association found between angiomyolipoma with patients having tuberous sclerosis. Okay, and let's generally it is benign, but one of the component, that is the blood or the muscle or this or the adipocyte component, any one of the component can get into a malignancies and then lead on to metastasis. Okay, so most of the lesions are asymptomatic, and they generally less than 4 centimeters. Generally less than 4 centimeter, then just do a follow-up. Okay, keep following up with the scans. If everything is normal, no symptoms, you can leave it. If the large tumors are there, we can proceed with something like an embolization or renal sparing surgery. And conservative surgical therapy is necessary because of frequent bilaterality and multiplicity. So whenever there's bilateral on the multiple lesions, at that point of time you can go in for a partial whereas you do a kidney sparing surgery, that is you do a partial nephrectomy. So this is a gross picture. Here you can see again. So just to show the multiple foci. So here see there's one pattern here, there's one pattern here. It is it could like from 4 centimeter, it can be really big, and no typical feature as such seen on the gross. It can very commonly mimic a renal cell carcinoma. But when you take the slide and you see, so this is normal kidney here, where you can see this is glomerulus, these are tubules, and here you can see adjacent to the normal kidney you see the angiomyolipoma component. So this is the angio component. You can see many blood vessels, proliferating capillaries, all these red things are the proliferating blood vessels. The myo component, where you can see all these are the smooth muscle cells arranged in interlacing fascicles. So this is the myo, and you can see the fat here. So this is the fat cells or the adipocytes. So you have the lipo, you have the myo, and this is the angio. So angiomyolipoma, benign tumor. Adjacent, this is the normal kidney we see. Now coming to the malignant renal tumors. So in the pediatric, the most common malignant renal tumor is the Wilms tumor, which is also referred to as the nephroblastoma. And in the adults, we have hypernephroma, which is also called as a renal cell carcinoma, transitional cell carcinoma of the renal pelvis, and squamous cell carcinoma. So this is just a picture showing. This is just a picture showing various presentations, various gross presentations of the renal cell carcinoma. So here we can see at one pole a tumor, or it can be multiple foci. See, multiple tumor-like deposits can be there. Here again you see an extensive heterogeneity. Okay? Here again you see there's areas of hemorrhages there, there's areas of necrosis, cystic areas, so very heterogeneous lesion. So here you can see a cystic area. So this picture just shows the various presentations of gross pathology of a renal cell carcinoma. So it's the most common neoplasm of the kidney. It arises in renal tubular cells. 2 to 3% of the all adulthood cancers. 40% of patients die of cancer. Most common in the 6 to 7 disease, and again a more predominant in the male population. What could be the risk factors is male gender. The African Americans are more prone for it. Age between 40 to 60, smoking, obesity, high calorie diet, lack of physical activity, occupational exposure, especially to asbestos and cadmium, and if there's a family history of RCC or following treatments like dialysis. Patients who are in chronic dialysis for chronic kidney disease, they are more prone for renal cell carcinoma, or people taking certain drugs like diuretics and phenacetin. So it's also associated, associated with hypertension. Okay, long-standing hypertension can also cause this kidney damage, and it can result in long-term can progress to RCC. Associated with renal cell carcinoma, there are certain genetic and hereditary conditions. Like in this, we very commonly found the renal cell carcinoma, which includes a von Hippel-Lindau disease, hereditary papillary renal cell carcinoma, Birt-Hogg-Dubs syndrome, hereditary renal oncocytoma, and also seen in certain cases with polycystic kidney. So this is just summarizing all the risk factors: smoking, drugs, and all high calorie diet, obesity. So just a picture, and especially asbestos and cadmium. So these are the risk factors for renal cell carcinoma. Histologically, there are 5 types: clear cell, papillary, chromophobe, collecting duct, and unclassified. At your level, you must know these two types. We also have slides for both of them in practical classes, clear cell RCC and the papillary RCC. So let's study about them in detail. So this is a gross picture. Typically, renal cell carcinoma, it's also called as a hypernephroma, which means it tries to sit above the kidney. And most commonly it is seen in the upper pole. Then it's the most common location of it is upper pole. Second thing is it has a very heterogeneous appearance. Okay. So it will have very cystic areas will be there, areas of hemorrhage, necrosis. So very heterogeneous appearance will be noted, and sometimes they also have yellowish tinge to it because of the extensive lipid content. So even the color of it will be pale to tan yellow. So here just showing you the cystic component of the RCC. So this is a picture showing you, let me just go to this picture. So this is a histological picture of a clear cell RCC, okay. So clear cell RCC, so as the name suggests, a lot of clear cells. So this is the tumor portion. The previous picture just showed you the normal kidney. This is the glomerulus tubule. This is a normal part of the kidney. And adjacent to the normal kidney, you can find this is the tumor composed of cells with an empty or a clear cytoplasm and nucleus pushed to the periphery, okay. So here again you can see they have empty or a clear cytoplasm. Why? Because all the lipid, the cytoplasm is composed of the lipid which gets washed off while making the stains, or while making the slide, or during the staining procedure, and that is why they appear as clear empty areas. So all these are the clear cells, and this part of it is the normal kidney, the glomeruli and the tubules. So here again you can see the clear cells which are arranged in lobules. So different patterns can be there, tubular, acinar, solid sheets, lobules. So whichever, they can pick up any pattern, but you can see that they will have this clear cells, okay, and these will be positive for the IHC marker CD10. Now this is a picture of papillary RCC. So from the word itself, you know, papillae, which means there will be finger-like projections. It is of two types, type 1 and type 2. And the type 1 is of a better prognosis. Okay, so here in type 1, we can see the papillae. That is, they will have finger-like projections with a fibrovascular core. So this is a typical papillae where you have a finger-like projection with a fibrovascular core, and it will be lined by single layer of basophilic cells. Okay, the cytoplasm will be more basophilic, which means bluish, and there will be single layer, and it will be very benign and looks very benign looking. So this is the papillary type of RCC which stains positive for CK7. This is a type 2 papillary RC where we can see the cells are again, they have papillae like projections, and these papillae are lined by cells which are multi-layered, okay, or there is pseudostratification, like on top of it many layers will be there. They have a more amount of eosinophilic cytoplasm and more amount of nuclear pleomorphism, okay. So this has a bad prognosis when compared to the papillary RCC type 1. Now chromophore RBC, typically histologically they will have more clear cells, just like your clear cell it can mimic your clear cell RCC, but features will be, the cytoplasm is very granular. Like if you look at the close, it will have pink dots. So there it is completely clear, but here it will have more granular cytoplasm and a typical perinuclear halo will be seen. That is, if you take the nucleus surrounding that, there will be clearing. So perinuclear halo with the granular cytoplasm is favoring chromophore RCC, and to differentiate we can use our IHC marker CD10, which is positive in clear cell RCC, and here it will be positive for the Hales colloidal ion stain. So you can see all the cytoplasm has picked it up and it stains different. So that is the most common types of RCCs. Among this, please make sure that you know about the clear cell RCC and papillary RCC, the gross and the microscopy. The risk factors and everything remains common for all types of RCC. Now transition cell carcinoma, it occurs in the renal pelvis, especially the ureter. When it starts, renal pelvis is most common because that's lined with the urothelium. So, and this is caused, risk factors include smoking, exposure to aniline or azote dyes, or associated with naphthalene exposure, and they're often multi-centric and the patients need a lot of follow-up. Okay, you need to keep monitoring. So this is just in the renal pelvis. You can see the most often the location. Whenever you think of a renal pelvic tumor, you think it could be more favoring urothelial carcinoma. It is not that. It cannot be an RCC. It can clear cell RCC. It can always be histologically only we can make the differentiation. But with the location, when it is present in the renal pelvis, you always kind of think of it could be a urothelial carcinoma. Now this is a microscopy where you see the proliferation of urothelium, the polarity is lost. I will be telling in detail about the urothelial carcinoma when I talk about it in the bladder tumors. So I think my next two classes are on bladder tumors and on the male genital tract. At that point of time, I will be talking about urothelial carcinoma, how it is classified and what is it, what are the features. So for now, just for a completion's sake, I've added this picture. This is a picture of urothelial carcinoma and it picks up a positive p63 staining. The squamous cell carcinoma of the renal pelvis is also seen, rare, but it is seen, and this is mostly seen following chronic inflammation from the stones. As a result of chronic irritation, it can the renal squamous cell carcinoma can be noted. Just like squamous cell carcinoma in any other part of the body, they typically have pleomorphic cells and they form keratin ferns, and they can be of keratinizing or the non-keratinizing type. Now, how do these renal cell carcinoma patients present means? It's a classic triad. One is the patient can have pain, okay, the renal pain, which can be like how I told you for renal stones, a loin to groin pain, or a pain in the lumbar region, a chronic pain in the lumbar region, so that is pain. Second is a patient will have hematuria, and when you palpate, there will be a flank mass in the lumbar region. You will typically see a mass. So this is the classic triad. Whenever a patient has these three symptoms, always think of some kind of renal tumor. So pain, hematuria, flank mass. Other things can be patient can have weight loss, hypertension, hypercalcemia, erythrocytosis. So this is just a picture showing this pain in the lumbar region. This is hematuria. The patient is having hypertension, and this is patient is just showing weight loss, and these are just normal features of any type of cancer. And here in the urine you can see hematuria with RBC cast. Also, these patients have something called as a paraneoplastic syndrome, so which we have read in the neoplasia syndrome, because RCC increases the production of 1,25-dihydroxycalciferol, renin, erythropoietin, and other hormone substances. Okay, so that is why. If a paraneoplastic syndrome features are there, always try to rule out the RCC. So renal cell carcinoma, I have already told you about the features. Hypertension, supraclavicular adenopathy, flank or abdominal mass will be there. And if it goes to metastasis, the most common organs where it goes and involves is the lungs, which is 75% of cases, then in soft tissues, bone and liver, cutaneous sites, and central nervous system. So in pediatric tumors, the most common tumors we see are the Wilms tumor, the rhabdomyoma, the clear cell carcinoma, and the mesoblastic nephroma. So Wilms tumor is the second most common pediatric abdominal tumor. So whenever a child presents with abdominal mass, the most common, very common DD which we always have to keep in mind is the Wilms tumor. The incidence of Wilms tumor is around 8 cases per million and around 500 new cases per year. And the ages they present with is in the present between ages less than 5 years, you can see 66%, and before the age of 10 years, 95% of the cases will present with some symptoms. So on physical examination, you will see a smooth, palpable, large abdominal mass. The patient may have some amount of hypertension, the child may have some amount of hypertension, hematuria will be there, and they can be associated with other congenital abnormalities. So in the syndromes also we can have the Wilms tumor, okay? Now, how does it thought to occur is, it is thought to occur from the persistent or metanephric-ness. So this is a picture, this is a normal developmental kidney, and this whitish area which you see are nothing but the nephrogenic rest. So normally what happens is, as the baby starts growing, these metanephric nests will disappear. So in 1% of newborn kidneys, they regress in childhood. So normally these metanephric nests will disappear as the child grows. But sometimes what happens is they remain multiple foci of nephrogenic rest which persistent. They remain persistent. So these are persistent nephrogenic rest and with super added with the translocation. The most common thing which we see is a P53 inactivation. So it's super added with the translocation or WT1 inactivation because of the super added translocation and the persistence of the nephrogenic rest. It will result in the progression of the tumor referred to as the Wilms tumor. So you must know what is the nephrogenic rest and what are the translocations associated with it. So they're generally large tumors. Here you can see this is a remnant normal kidney and here you see such a big tumor. Okay, so they present as real large masses. Again, they could be ill circumscribed with extreme areas of heterogeneity. And on histology, we will see basically three patterns: the tubular pattern, the blastemal pattern and the stromal pattern. Okay, and all the three types are of the Wilms tumor considered favorable. If all the three are present, then it favors a good prognosis. Okay, so Wilms tumor, I think you just have to remember the three patterns: the tubular, blastemal and the stromal. Three types of cells to be present. So that's the class today. So to summarize, what you should know in renal tumors is, first you should know what are the common benign tumors and what are the laboratory classification for the malignant tumors. Now under benign tumors you must know about oncocytoma and the angiomyolipoma. So these are the most common, but it can be asked as short notes. Then in the RCC you must know what are the symptoms, what are the clinical presentation of the patient, what is the clinical presentation, what are the risk factors and the various histological types. Of note, you should know about the clear cell RCC and papillary RCC because these two RCCs we also have a practical slide, so you must be very clear about it could be a theory as well as a practical question. And then what are the other tumors which we can see in the kidney, that is transitional cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and Wilms tumor per se is a short note, very frequently asked because a very common abdominal tumor seen in children. So, and what is the pathogenesis or the genetic translocation which takes place in Wilms tumor. So that's the summary of the class. Thank you.